Welcome to Alpha Wolf Capital. I'm Tim, and I want to personally thank you for stopping by. This channel is designed to help small companies, both public and private, gain exposure with potential consumers, investors, even partners. Take, for example, today's guest, Daniel Solomita from Loop Industries. Loop Industries is revolutionizing the fight against plastic waste. Loop's pioneering technologies break down PET plastics and polyester fibers, even materials that can't be conventionally recycled, into their building blocks for the reuse in food-grade packaging, textiles, and more. Their infinite loop process means plastic can be recycled again and again, reducing our dependence on fossil fuels and driving a truly circular economy. This is a impact company that has managed to survive a pandemic, the worst supply chain issues in the history of mankind, and they haven't blown up their cap table. But I'm going to let Daniel tell you more about that in just a minute. This is not to be taken as investment advice. I am not a certified financial planner. This is for education and entertainment purposes only. I encourage everyone to do their own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Capital coming at you with a brand new company, one that I think is definitely fitting of having a positive impact. Loop Industries, which is a new story to me that a buddy of mine asked me to take a look at, and it was intriguing enough that I now have the CEO and co-founder, right, of Loop Industries. And Daniel, how you doing, man?
Very good. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me on.
No, hey, it's my pleasure. So Daniel and I were just having a fantastic conversation. We probably could have talked for another hour or two, but we actually had to get this recording done. Fascinating story, man. First of all, thank you for coming on. How do I say your last name?
Solomita.
Exactly.
As
All
it's
right,
pronounced.
All right, Daniel. Why don't you give everybody that just a quick rundown of what it is that Loop Industries does?
Sure. So Loop Industries, basically what we do is we supply PET resin for packaging, so plastics. So we supply PET resin, which is the number one used plastic for packaging. Any water bottles, soda bottles, shampoo containers, creams, ketchup, mayonnaise, any of those type of packaging, that's all PET. So we sell PET resin to the big CPG companies using it for their packaging. Everything we do is 100% recycled content, and it's virgin quality. So they get the exact same quality as the petroleum industry, but coming from recycled content. And on the flip side, we also do polyester fiber. So PET and polyester are made with the exact same chemicals. So we provide 100% recycled polyester fiber, highest quality, to all of the big apparel companies, like the Nikes, Zara's, H&M, anything to do with textiles and clothing. So what's really cool is if you think about it, probably a lot of people don't realize this, but a pair of shorts and a water bottle are made with the exact same petrochemicals, dimethyl terephthalate, DMT, and monoethylene glycol, MEG. Those two are made today from fossil fuels, and those are the base chemicals that go into any one of those finished products. So when you're talking about textiles or clothing, it's the exact same thing as a water bottle.
Interesting. That is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Right.
So we break down like waste plastic, so waste PET or waste textiles. We break it back into its base chemicals, the DMT and the MEG. We purify those base chemicals back to their purest form, same as the day that the chemical companies made them, and then we recombine them to a new finished product. That's the way I can take an old t-shirt and turn that into a water bottle for one of my customers. So we've done a whole bunch of really exciting launches from our plant here in Montreal, Canada. We did Evian water bottles, L'Oreal, Garnier products, some of their skincare, soaps with a company called L'Occitane, a French company. We launched a pair of running shoes with On Shoes, the Swiss shoe company. So they sent us a whole bunch of old running shoes. We broke it down in our process, built it back up, and they sell these running shoes online. So yeah, we have a lot of, traction with a lot of the big CPG companies.
So you sound like a guy that's been in the chemicals and chemistry and for your entire life, but come to find out that really isn't your background.
No, I actually went to school for computer engineering, and I went to work at the Canadian phone company Bell Canada right out of school for 12 years. But I wanted to be like an entrepreneur. I wanted to do my own thing. Like working in a big company was fun, but I wanted to do something else. And so I kind of invented working from home before COVID happened because I'm in Montreal, but all of the computers I was taking care of were spread out around the country. So I would be working from home because I didn't need to be physically there. I would just be connecting online back then. And so it gave me a lot of time to like think about what I wanted to do and try new projects and things. And so I stumbled across a really cool landfill remediation project down in South Carolina, in Greenwood, South Carolina, in the middle of the state, really in the middle of nowhere. There was an old Monsanto plant that was making nylon 6,6 fiber for the carpet industry. And so what these guys were doing is that all of their leftovers, all of their waste product, all of their off-spec stuff, they dug a big hole in the back of the factory and dumped 40 million pounds of this stuff into the landfill behind the factory. And so these guys in 2012, I believe there was a private equity firm from Houston, Texas that took over the plant, and they wanted to get this cleaned up. And so a Chinese company had come in, bought a bunch of excavation equipment, and basically what they were doing is they were just digging it up with, an excavator, digging up the dirt, and about 2 feet under the dirt was this nylon fiber. So imagine like long spaghetti strings of nylon fiber, pure white, but they were mixed in with all the dirt, and the in South Carolina has this like a red clay as a dirt, so very heavy. And so
Yep.
it was all mixed in together. So the Chinese company, what they were doing is they were taking all of this material, putting it into shipping containers, shipping it off to China, and people in China were actually manually cleaning this
Oh,
stuff. Yeah, imagine the environmental impacts of that. And so because the clay is so heavy and the nylon is so light, it was like 90% dirt, 10% nylon getting in the containers. Anyway, so like in 2012, China stopped allowing like these heavily polluted containers and plastics to come into the country. So basically, the Chinese company lost its business. So I went down, took a look at it, found some, the material was really good quality if you could separate the dirt from the clay, separate the clay, sorry, from the nylon. And so what I did is thought about it. I went and approached a bunch of companies for the material, found two guys that wanted the material to use it for their products. And so I took a deposit from each one of those two companies, one from Brownsville, Tennessee, one's from Montreal, Canada, took a deposit from both of them for the material, bought over to landfill, and then started the process there. And so I developed a little process on how to remove the dirt from the nylon. And I went down to Dalton, Georgia. There were these guys that were recycling carpets at the time, and they were using this piece of equipment called a tornado pulper. It's from the pulp and paper industry. So when you recycle paper or
yeah.
cardboard, they dump it into a big container with water. And there's just like this like 3 foot motor rotor stator that shreds the paper. And it's attached to the side of a tank. So I rented a pickup truck. I loaded it up with some of the dirt and the material, like the worst material we could find. Drove down to Dalton, Georgia, and had these guys process my material in that pulp and paper equipment. And it worked really well. So all the dirt and the clay stayed in the tank, and I was able to shred the nylon. And so I said, okay, I got to get one of those. And so that was like the key piece of equipment that allowed me to clean this material. What's funny is that piece of equipment, I found one at a used pulp and paper mill in Massachusetts that was going bankrupt. So I bought it out at the auction. And that's what allowed me to A, clean the material, but that also allowed me to found Loop. Because through buying that piece of equipment, I met the chemist who actually had the idea for our initial technology. So it's been a whirlwind in the past 10 years of developing this company, building it up. It's been an amazing story, and we've been through so many challenges, but you got to get through it and get through to the other side.
So you meet the chemist who's got an idea, but he's never actually done it.
No, he's never done it at any scale. And so I'll tell you how I met the chemist. It's pretty wild. So this tornado pulper is this, like I said, a 3 foot rotor stator, comes with a 400 horsepower motor attached to it. So I bought it at an auction, and I'm like, okay, I'll get the truck to ship it up to Montreal. And my brother had a little small distribution business. I'm like, listen, I'll ship it there, unload it there, and then I'll figure out how to get it down onto a tank and bring it down to South Carolina. And so I remember that morning, my brother calls me. He's like, listen, this piece of equipment, he goes, my little lift can't even take it off the truck. I don't know what you want me to do with this, but the driver's, he's not really patient right now. He wants to get out of here. So what do you want to do? I'm like, man, you can't lift. He's like, no, I can't get it off the truck. So and my brother had a friend who had a transportation business nearby, a warehousing business. So we brought the truck there. He unloaded it for us, left it there. So I show up later on in the day, and the guy's like, "What are you going to do with this piece of equipment?" So I started talking to him about the plastics down in South Carolina and what I was doing with it. And he's like, I got a guy that rents a whole bunch of warehouse space from me. He goes, "You should really, maybe see this guy because he's got tons of plastic here. Maybe there's something you can do with it." So I went to see the plastic. Anyway, I had a buyer that wanted to buy some of the material, sold him some of the plastic. So the guy comes over to my house to pick up the check for me to buy the plastic. His name was Yves Noel. And it's like, we started talking, we're having a beer at my house, just, getting to know him a little bit better. And he's like, listen, I met this chemist at the university. You should really meet this guy. He has some like crazy ideas in plastics. Maybe you should talk to him. So I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not? So he put us together. I went to meet the chemist. And like I said, he had never done this before at any type of scale. It was all an idea in his head. And so we linked up. A few weeks later, he actually shows me like a tabletop example of the process. And he was able to break down waste plastic into those base chemicals right in front of my eyes. Low heat, no pressure, done, basically by stirring, putting it in a glass jar and stirring it. It was the most wild thing I've ever seen before. And I said, I really need to figure out if what he's doing is actually something that we can scale. And that's how we started the company. Everything that chemist brought that day to that demonstration, he bought it at Home Depot off the shelf. Like nothing special, no crazy like toxic chemicals or anything. It was all done off the shelf at Home Depot. And that's
So,
how we started the journey. And ever since then, I've just been, learning how to get this done ever since.
so he's retired now,
Yeah, he's semi-retired. He comes once in a while to the office, but he's in his 70s. So
but his two
uh,
sons have taken over the reins.
yeah, the two sons both work for me. Smart, some of the smartest young men you'll ever meet in your life. These guys grew up around chemistry. The father's like the mad scientist. Like he has these great ideas and stuff, but to be disciplined in chemistry, you have to be like repeat the same thing over and over and over again and like change one little variable to make sure that you have the right results. And so the sons brought really that rigor to the technology. And today we have over 50 scientists working for us in the chemistry labs and the operations. So, we've built out a whole organization around this since then. So you got a great team of chemists, engineers that, have
You
developed this
must have a pretty good
technology.
sales team because you've got customers like Nike and
So we got
Nestle
great,
and
great customer base. All the big CPG companies. Our sales team is just myself and our chief revenue officer, Giovanni. So we handle the sales together. It's a really like it takes a lot of time with these companies because it's not just selling them something, right? These guys want to make sure that what you're doing, that the environmental impact of what you're doing is better than what the petroleum industry is doing. They want to come and see the process. So either they come here themselves, they send their scientists here, or they hire third-party consultants to validate the technology. They'll send us like old basketball jerseys or old running shoes, send it here. We have to process it for them with their people watching it, sending it back to them. So it's like a really long process to acquire these customers. But once you acquire them,
once
they're
you get
with
them,
you
they
because
got to
they
be
need
sticky.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it gets sticky. So like a company like Danone with the Evian water brand, we've been working with them since 2017, I think was the first time they ever came here. So we've been developing that relationship. We have Evian water bottles for sale in South Korea that we made here from our technology. So you have a great customer base. And now it's time to really execute and get this to the next level. So we have a great
And
production facility here that we use for R&D and small production. And now we're
okay.
building out globally.
And your plant is going to be in India, right?
The first plant we're building at commercial, like a large scale commercial facility, is going to be India in Dahej, which is in the Gujarat province. Why we chose India is awesome. India is a really interesting place to do business. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but during COVID, that really changed the whole landscape for a lot of companies and ours as well. We build chemical plants, right? So these are big plants. Um, there's significant capex that goes into building these
Yeah.
plants. And during COVID, I mean, it was the wildest time because the price of building anything just skyrocketed, right? We saw the cost of a plant go up 50, 60, 70% within a year. I remember like talking to suppliers and they're like, well, if you don't sign today, I can't guarantee the price for more than 5 days because after that it's going to go up higher. So it was like an impossible environment to build these projects in. So during COVID, the price of capexes went up, but also the price of commodities went up. So the plastic prices were high because of the factories in Asia going offline. So it kind of made sense because higher capex, higher pricing, you still had a business model. But after COVID, when China opened up their factories again, the prices of commodities came down, capex is leveled off. But you had that discrepancy. And that's where you saw a lot of projects getting canceled. We had a project that got canceled as well in South Korea because just the economics didn't make sense anymore.
Right.
So we had a partnership with a big Korean chemical company, SK Global Chemical, South Korean chemical giant. They invested $56.5 million into Loop at $12 a share back in 2021. And we partnered to build this big plant in South Korea. Unfortunately, because of the economics, it didn't work out. But that plant was like a $600 million project.
Wow.
So I said, hey, I got to reinvent my business because there's no way I can spend that kind of money building a plant and compete in the chemical business or in the plastics business. And so I had to completely shift the way I thought about doing business. That same $600 million plant today in India is less than $180 million,
Wow.
$176 million for the exact same plant. That's a 66% reduction in capex for the exact same plant, just because of the low cost nature of India. And so thankfully, I had a good relationship with a company in India for the past 5 years that we've been working with. They're a PET manufacturer, polyester fiber manufacturer, but they're a petroleum-based company, nothing to do with recycling. So they have the operational experience, they have the PET manufacturing experience, and now we're bringing our technology and our customer base to India. So low cost manufacturing allows us to be super competitive on pricing. So I don't need green premiums. I can get my customers the product that they need, 100% recycled content, virgin quality at the price that they're paying for their material today. So that's a real winning combination here. So yeah, we bring in our customer base, our technology to that low cost manufacturing, and that's been a huge success so far. And we're going to build up a big manufacturing hub in India with multiple facilities supplying that. All of it's being exported to other parts of the world.
And that's scheduled to be completed when?
End of 27.
End of
So we've
27?
done all of so we've secured land. We've done all of the project engineering. That's where projects fail is after the engineering. That's when you see that capex number, and
Yeah.
that's when like, oh, things usually are much higher than the initial estimate. Actually, this project came in 10 million under the initial estimate. So first time ever you see a capex with an estimate, and we came in 10 million under that number. We think we can still do a little bit better than that, but we're really comfortable at that 176 number. And so we finished all of the engineering. Now we're going towards the next phase of detailed engineering construction and signing all of the offtake agreements. So signing offtake agreements with all of the big CPG brands for the packaging industry in Europe and apparel companies on the textile side. So offering textile to textile for the apparel brands. So
It's
that's really, that's the holy grail for these apparel companies. That's what they want. They want to be able to recycle their waste clothing and turn that into, new clothing for them. So that's what our technology can do.
it's fantastic. I mean, this is really to me a fascinating story, man. I mean, so here is another example of I think COVID was a bad thing, but in a lot of ways, COVID was a blessing for some companies because it forced them to look at things differently,
Yeah,
right? And
100%. That's exactly what happened to us. We had to find a new way of doing our business because if we wanted to build those 600, million dollar plants and the price comes down, it's so price sensitive. Look, I don't believe in the green premiums. That's the problem, right? Technology companies in the green space, everybody's looking for those green premiums. Customers have to pay a premium. I don't believe in that anymore. I saw that for a while in the run up before COVID. After COVID, it changed the mindset of all these companies because they need to focus on cutting costs, bringing down prices, inflation. Those are what these companies care about now. And everyone's cost sensitive. And so that's where we say, hey, we got to figure out how to do this at a much better price. So you could see that 600 million coming down to 176 for the exact same project by moving it to a low cost manufacturing country like India. And so now the other thing that we've been working on diligently over the past year, after we saw this at the beginning, I didn't even believe it. I was like, this $600 million plant, and my partner in India was like, yeah, this is going to get done for under $200 million. I'm like, there's no way that's going to happen. Even my engineers are like, this is impossible. We went through the process. We hired Tata, a large engineering firm, the Tata Group. They did all of the engineering. They confirmed the price, the cost of the plant at 176. We were all blown away. So what we said is, so we started saying, how do we bring that low cost manufacturing? How do you bring that, 176 number and export that to the rest of the world? And the way you do that is through modularization. So you take our big chemical plant and you build it in modules like Lego blocks in India, low cost manufacturing, everything's built in India. And we take those Lego blocks and we ship them to anywhere in the world. As long as you have a port and roads, we can
Yep.
ship you our technology, built in modules there. And you're benefiting from the low cost India model and bringing it to Europe or North America or Japan or Korea, where you have much higher construction costs. And that's
Yep.
exactly what we're doing right now with our partners at SocGen in Europe. So SocGen invested 10 million euro into Loop back in December, just before Christmas. So they invested 10 million euro, really good deal for us. Again, non-dilutive capital. It converts into Loop stock at $4.75 a share in 2030, or we can pay them back in cash. So if the stock price is above that, we can just pay them back in cash. And it pays a 13% interest to them, a PIK interest, so we don't have to cover anything for 5 years. And with that, they also licensed our technology. So they licensed to be able to build one of our plants in the European Union. And they paid us an upfront 10 million euro for that license. So we've already sold our first license. We got 10 million euro upfront. And there's another 10 million euro in payments coming to us before construction. Plus, we get to do all the engineering work and we get to sell them the modules. So we build the modules and we sell them back to the project. So each
Got it.
project becomes like a cash machine for us because you got the licensing fees, you got the engineering fees, and you got the selling of the modules. So those three pieces bring out tremendous amount of capital back to Loop for every
Is that
project we
is
build.
that and obviously that's repeatable, right? So
Every project, yep.
yeah,
Every
okay.
project, you have a licensing fee, you have the engineering work, and you have the modules. So, and that's big business. We're talking about close to $50 million if you add up the licensing fees, engineering fees, and modularization fees. You're at about $50 million coming back to Loop for every single project. Not talking about selling it, not talking about that's just getting through construction. That's what we're talking about. So every project we build from now on, it's going to be a huge amount of cash coming back to Loop just for
Oh,
those
that's
things.
fantastic, man. That's an excellent business model, right?
Yeah, and when so we want to invest our capital into the low cost manufacturing, the projects in India, other low cost manufacturing where you have great returns for investors. You have huge returns on the projects. And in countries where it's a little bit higher cost manufacturing, we'll sell the modules, we'll sell you a license. We might take a small portion of it if we want to, take 10, 15, 20% ownership stake. Loop always owns the technology and Loop always owns the customers. So all the customers flow through us. Everyone else is just a manufacturing partner. So the
Right.
contracts with the CPG companies, the textile companies, that all is held by us. We have our sales company set up in the United States. All the money flows through there, and then we sign a back-to-back contract with our manufacturing partners.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love this story, man. So I mean, we haven't even really talked about the impact that this has on humanity, on Earth, right? I mean, a lot of positive things from your product.
Yeah, the technology is built to be able to recycle material that nobody else can recycle, like textile waste, polyester textile waste, or packaging waste that nobody else can do anything with. That's where our technology comes in.
And you do it very energy conservatively.
Yeah, that's the key. So the problem with recycling, why recycling has never worked, is because there's so many different components that go into a package or a textile. All of those different components have different starting materials or different chemicals. So when they're all mixed together, if you usually you have to use high heat and high pressure to break apart these plastics. It's like slamming it over the head with a sledgehammer until it breaks. It's not very elegant. So take a textile, take a t-shirt or a jacket or something. You'll have polyester mixed with cotton. You'll have polyester mixed with nylon. You'll have buttons, zippers, spandex. All those different materials have different starting points. So if you're using like very intense, high heat, high pressure to break it down, you're going to break all of those things up together. And at the end of the day, you're going to end up with like this soup of garbage that you can't do anything with. And that's the problem with recycling, why it doesn't work. Even if you take a simple water bottle, the bottle itself is PET plastic. The cap is polypropylene. The label is like paper or some other type of plastic. You have a glue on the back of the bottle. So even that, you got to take off the cap, you got to take off the label, you got to wash it to make it usable. And that's the problem. So what Loop has invented is how do we break down the plastic into its base chemicals, and then you do that at low temperature so that none of those other components, the nylons, the caps, the labels, the buttons, the zippers, they don't get broken down. So it Loop's operating temperature, our reactors are less than 85 degrees Celsius. And I'm a sauna guy, so when I work out, I go into sauna after. When you're in a sauna, 85 degrees, you're not even really sweating yet. So imagine like a button or a zipper, it's not breaking down at 85 degrees. So
Right.
that's what keeps us ahead of everything else that's ever been invented before. Because at 85 degrees, we're breaking down the PET into its two base chemicals, dimethyl terephthalate, DMT, which today is made from crude oil, and monoethylene glycol, which is a clear oily liquid, MEG, that comes from natural gas. So those are the two petrochemicals that go into making a water bottle, a soda bottle, or a pair of shorts or a t-shirt. Everything's the same. A pair of shorts and a water bottle are made with the exact same chemicals, DMT and MEG. So we could take a pair of shorts, break that down into the DMT and the MEG. We remove all the coloring, all the additives, all the dyes, all the other materials that can be in there. We bring it back to its original state, the same purity, and we do that simply through distillation columns, which is very commonly used in chemical industries all around the world. It's like making moonshine. You got to distill the alcohol. Well, we're
Yep.
distilling these two chemicals back to their purest form, and then we recombine them into any finished product. That's why I can take an old t-shirt and turn it into a water bottle for one of my customers. It's really that's the technology. So all of the waste that we're recycling are all the stuff that ends up into the landfills, into the oceans and the rivers, all that garbage that nobody else, there's no value to it because nobody can use it. And so that's why it ends up polluting everywhere. If you had a technology that can recycle it and create value out of it, now you're doing something. Now that material has value. So now we can start recycling that material. So instead of ending up in the landfills, once someone's willing to pay for something, it's not going to go to the garbage anymore. There's going to be a system that gets
Yeah.
developed to be able to recycle that. So that's what we're doing. So in India, most of the feedstock that we're going to be using for the plant in India is old textile waste. So when they're making t-shirts or they're making dresses, the cuts around the fabric, that's what we're using. All of that scrap fabric cuts are what we're going to recycle and turn that into either water bottles or other textiles for our customers.
It's so cool, man. I mean, you got to feel pretty good about what you're doing, huh?
Yeah, it's been a tough journey. Listen, I founded the company 10 years. We've lived through crazy amount of challenges, COVID being the biggest one. But what you said earlier is like resiliency. If you can get through those times and survive, change your business model, and make sure that we can get to the
I want
next
to get
step.
to the, and I want to highlight a couple of things, right? So what I find really interesting is when I looked up your outstanding shares, I was pleasantly surprised that it was not a bloated share count, which was actually shocking to me because I do know how much these plants go for. There's been a lot of companies that have tried to do what you're doing,
Yep.
and they have been cash burning machines. That's what they've been.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You, on the other hand, have what, 47 million shares outstanding?
Yeah. 47 and change. That's right.
47 and change. Is that fully diluted?
No, fully diluted. We're probably around 53, 54.
Okay, still
Yeah.
ridiculous, right?
And
So,
why it's so low is because that's always been a real sticking point with me. I'm the largest shareholder of the company.
okay.
And so any dilution affects me more than anybody else. So I've always been really careful about diluting it with shares. And we did some really great deals. Like I told you, SK, the South Korean chemical company, they invested at $12 a share, 56.5 million. We bought some land for a project that we were looking at in Quebec in Canada. The Canadian government during COVID, before COVID, during COVID, right when all these projects, they bought the land back for me. We made like 5x our money on that land. So that was really great for the company, right? That's cash for back to the company. We sold a license to SocGen for the without, that's non-dilutive capital. So we've been really doing a good job of being efficient, not
Yeah.
wasting money, and bringing in non-dilutive capital to the company. And that's why we have so many, so few shares outstanding. I mean, that's the
And
key to all of this.
nobody knows about you.
Nobody knows about
I
us. I
don't
agree
think,
with you.
do you have anybody on Wall Street that's covering you?
We have Roth
Roth?
Capital. Jerry Sweeney covers us.
Okay.
Yeah, we have Roth, and then we have a Canadian group as well that covers us, Cormark.
What are
But
your margins? What are your margins on your product?
so there's two businesses, right? There's the licensing side, engineering side. Those are really sky high margin business because the engineering's done. So
Yep.
we're just selling the same engineering package over and over. We do have to, every project has its own complexities, where you're building, government regulations, depending
Yep.
which country you're in. But those are really high margin business. We're talking about, north of 70% margins for licensing, for engineering and modularization. And then on the actual manufacturing, so let's say in India, where we're actually manufacturing, it's 70,000 tons capacity. It's about $150 million of revenue and about 50% EBITDA margins on that number. So about 75 million of EBITDA.
Okay.
Tremendously profitable because of the low cost.
Yeah.
My customer base, they're going to buy the material from me at the same price, regardless if I'm building a plant in New York City, India, or Paris, they're going to pay the same price. So
Right.
it's my job to bring down the costs. And that's what we've been able to do with this project in India. So we're super excited about that. And selling a product to our customers at the same price they're paying for it today, but they get better quality, a sustainability angle to it, a better environmental impact. I mean, it's an easy sell for a lot of people.
Daniel, what can go wrong?
What can go wrong? I think we've lived through the hardest part. If we were able to come out the other side, bringing down the cost of a plant by 70%, 60 over 65%, 70% cost reduction, being able to sell a product at the same price that the customers are paying for it today. In Europe today for material, they're paying 1,800 euro for decent quality material. We're selling it at 2,000 USD a ton, which is same price for much better quality. So customers are there. We've the technology's proven out, and this technology's been had so many independent due diligence on the technology. Just in the past little while, SK, the chemical company, before putting in $56.5 million, they did obviously a huge technical due diligence themselves because that's their business. SocGen, the French bank that I licensed the technology to, they hired an independent third party that did a review of the technology as well. Obviously, that came out well because they invested in the company and they licensed the technology. More recently, Mitsui, the large Japanese company, trading company, materials company. So Mitsui looked over the past year, they looked at all of the different chemical recycling technologies out there, and they chose Loop's technology to work with. So best in class from Mitsui as well. So we've had so many people independently validate the technology. Plus, we have a plant that runs here, so you could just come and see the technology, see it working. So I think on the technology side, we've got that covered. Scale up is not a big scale up. So on equipment size, it's about a 4x scale up on equipment. So not a big scale up factor, especially for the chemical industry. Good customer base, great partner in India. I think we have everything going to us to make this successful. You know, we
Except for you being rewarded for your execution.
I think that's going to come, right? We got to execute. We've got to execute. We've done the engineering, we've got the cost estimate, we've done the technology. Now for us, the next 6 months are going to be really exciting because that execution piece is coming into play. Finished off the engineering, that's been confirmed by a global, world-class engineering firm and Tata Engineers. So that's confirmed. Now it's about signing the customer contracts. So getting the CPG companies, getting the apparel companies, signing those offtake agreements, which are long-term supply agreements for the offtake material for the plant. And then it's about breaking ground and getting this project done in the next 2 years. So the execution story now, that's really where we're going to shine, is on the execution pace.
All right, I'm going to take a look at. I want to show everybody the chart right now because I think, and I would say you'll probably agree with me that I think your stock price is I would call it undervalued.
Significantly undervalued. I would say just the technology is worth way more than the entire market cap.
How much money have you guys poured into your technology?
We've raised over 200 million to date.
Okay. All right. So as I look at your chart, so just so you understand, Daniel, I was never a technical guy. I was always a fundamental guy. And then like 17 years ago, I took a technical course, and now the chart is the first thing I look at.
Yeah, okay.
Now, what's interesting is I always thought, technicals, I mean, what the hell is looking at the chart and what happened in the past going to help me determine what's going to happen in the future, right? But what it's almost like taking an X-ray, in a lot of ways, right? It shows you where there's support, there's resistance. Price has memory, and people are people, right? They have habits. Round numbers mean something to people. It's just a lot of interesting stuff, right? So as I look at your chart, the fact that you keep coming up into this 185 area, hitting it, and then you try to break through and you pull back, that's not an accident. There's some actual area where there's resistance and support there. So it acted as support, right? And then when it finally broke through, now it's acting as resistance on the way up.
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to wind up cracking that. But what I find really interesting about the chart itself, is that nobody's in control right now. It is in what I would call just a waiting mode, right? It's basically bulls aren't in charge, bears aren't in charge. It's like wait and see mode. And part of that has to do with the overall market itself and small caps in general, small and micro caps, right? So they have been out of favor for 5 years. This
Yeah.
has been one of the worst duration cycles I've ever been through. I've never been through one as long and as painful as this one has been. But that is, look, in every I guess bad, there's always a silver lining, right? The
Yeah.
silver lining to me is this was a long one. So what I think is that when it does turn, it's going to be a long one, because when it goes from large cap to small caps, typically that cycle is around 6 years. I think that when we turn the corner on this one, this cycle for small caps could last for 8 to 10 years,
Wow.
right? So because of the duration of how we've been beaten down. a lot of companies like you have not only survived COVID, which was a pandemic, which was never happened before. And then we had the worst supply chain issues in the history of mankind. And then we had the fastest interest rate hike cycle in the history of mankind, right? That was, I would call that a somewhat challenging business environment for a small company.
Yeah.
And if they were able to navigate through that, and not just navigate through, but do what you did, which was identify, hey, we got to change the plan, man. And so, what does that say to me about you and your team? It says that you guys are resilient and you think outside the box and you're willing to make change and make decisions quickly, right? And that's why you're still here. So, when I see that, that says to me, you've got a really solid management team. You've got a product and you've got protection. You've got a moat around your technology, right? You have a huge need. This is not a want. This is a need, right?
Yeah.
We've got plastics all over the freaking planet that need to be broke down and turned into something. So you have all the elements of what I look for in an impactful company, right? So you're doing things to help the planet. You know, I think this is a feel good story all the way around. Even the mad scientist, the sun's being, you know, the whole thing is what I call a really good. You can feel good about supporting this kind of company, right? This isn't one of the big boys now today. It's not one of the Mag 7, but there's nothing to say that it can't be a Mag 7 at some point down the road, right?
Listen, we have a great technology, best in the business. We have a product that customers need and customers want. And like you said, you know, there's parts of the world where government regulations are coming in, forcing companies to use more and more recycled content. Europe has minimum mandates. India, believe it or not, is coming in with minimum mandates. A lot of Asia. So the momentum for plastics is coming back and saying, okay, you got to use more recycled content.
Yep.
What happens is when they start doing that, the quality falls off. And that's where they need us to come back in and bring that quality to the top level for these companies. And that's what Loop's technology can do. So I think we're really well positioned for the future. Now it's about just execution. Low stock price, I stopped focusing on the stock price a long time ago. I got to focus on my whole company. I told everybody, don't look at the stock price. Got to focus on execution. Get this thing done. We've done the right thing. We moved to India. CapEx came in 10 million less than we actually thought, which is a miracle. But just hard work, great partnership. Now it's about execution, customer contracts. I suspect once we start signing and announcing those customer contracts.
What do you see as the potential catalyst over the next 6 to 12 months?
6 to 12 months is definitely going to be customer contracts. That's going to be key. So selling the material to the big CPG brand companies or the apparel companies, that's key. Breaking ground on the project. So, you know, the license to SocGen, getting the land sorted. So right now we're working, supporting them on choosing the land, which part of Europe they're going to be building this plant. Right now, the Netherlands and Germany are the two leading countries. Once that's done, then we start generating significant amount of revenue from the engineering and from the modularization. So those are huge pieces as well. And that's all, you know, cash back to the company, very high margin on that cash. So those are going to be the biggest catalyst. And then obviously breaking ground on the facility and the updates on the facility. Other partnerships, you know, we're talking to a bunch of other people in different parts of the world as well for either
And you don't see a need to raise capital?
There might be a little bit of a need to raise some capital at some point, but we have some really good strategic partners that we're talking to that are always, you know, that see the value. Why I love working with strategic partners is because they see the value in Loop that the market doesn't necessarily see, right? So when you're dealing like I did with SK, when SK bought the stock at $12 a share, I think we were trading under 8, but they paid a 50% premium to the stock price because they wanted access to the technology. So when we get into those type of deals, you get really favorable terms, like we did with SocGen. licensed them the technology, paid us 10 million up front, got a great deal on the financing. So those are the type of deals we look at. There's not a huge need for financing.
How did you learn to navigate the capital markets like this, man?
I honestly, I wish I knew more early on, because if I had that background helping me or someone mentoring me on that background, probably could have been a lot easier on myself, in the past few years. But right now, I mean, that's just the way we've always done it. I'm always trying to find ways to have people, because we have great technology. At the end of the day, the technology stands out. So people that know us are willing to pay higher dollar figures for the access to the technology than the markets would accept. I've only done one equity raise my whole 10 years. Was one deal we did with some banks in Europe. That's the only thing. Everything else has always been through strategic partnerships and strategics. That's it. So we've raised 170 million through strategic partnerships, 30
Super,
million
super, super, super smart.
30 million's been an equity issuance. That's why we don't have a lot of analysts covering us, because if you don't raise the money, you don't pay the banks, they don't cover you, right? It's that
Yep. Well, that's the
chicken and
thing,
egg.
right?
Yeah,
That's what's broken with Wall Street, and that's why I do what I do. It's because back in the day, you're right. Why did you go public? You went public so that the analysts would then cover the stock and go take your story out to the public and say, "Hey, we think this company's pretty good. You can be part owner, right?"
yeah,
And then, but they don't do that anymore. The only way
no,
you get coverage is if you're going to do a financing, and
yeah,
their financing deals are such shit. Why would you want to, right? So it's a screwy system, and it's gotten harder for retail investors. And everybody says, man, it's a rigged game. True, absolutely, it is a rigged game. But you learn how to play the game,
yeah,
and there are advantages to retail investors.
100%,
Okay, you
100%. You got
you
to access
just have to do the homework. That's it,
for
right?
small companies, retail investors are really important, because they can bring you, like you were talking about earlier, they can bring you to where you need to be to get the attraction from the big banks. So
Right.
sort of that's the space we're in now. But again, because of the technology, we get access to those uh people, or those investors, or those strategics that want something more. They want the technology for Japan, or they want the technology for a different part of the world. So when they want to license the technology, I can always incorporate a little bit of financing in there, because they want me to succeed as well, right? Like if you got a
Absolutely.
Japanese company that wants to license your technology, well, that Japanese company wants to know that you're going to be successful. So, putting a little investment
See,
behind
I
the
love
work.
this. This is so refreshing. And look, I do this show for a lot of, or this podcast, or whatever you want to call it, for a lot of reasons. It's not just all about investing. It's leadership skills. It's capital markets experience. It's a whole lot of things, right? That, like you said, you probably, and this is something I hammer home with a lot of small companies, is everyone thinks if you build it, they will come. That's Field of Dreams. It's a
Yeah,
movie. Building it is only part of the. That's just the beginning, right?
yeah,
Then getting people to adopt it,
yeah,
and the whole it takes time, and all companies, small companies, a lot of the time they overestimate when they're going to be able to get to cash flow positive, and then they try to take little dilutive financings along the way, because they don't want to, really, instead of ripping off the band-aid and getting a good chunk of money in the door, they do it. It's death by a thousand cuts, right?
yeah,
So, but that's because they don't know any better. They think the banks and the financial institutions are their friends and their partners. They're not. There's so much to the market that you got to learn. But once you understand how the markets work, you can do really, really well,
yeah,
because this is what happens. A company like yours that has put almost $200 million into its technology, is trading at $1.68. Now you could go scrape your car and your couch and come up probably with enough to buy 10 shares, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I'm saying. You know, I used to say I never tell anybody to buy anything ever. But when you have valuations like this, I say to myself, you know what? Go buy 10 shares. That's not going to hurt anybody, right? And anybody could pretty much go buy 10 shares.
Yeah.
If 80 million people tried to buy 10 shares, that would probably move your stock,
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah.
So I'm looking at your stock. You're very thinly traded. What, 7,800 shares on average, or what do you guys trade on average a day?
Well, we've been, when in the past, let's say 6 months, anytime we made any type of material announcement, we've actually got a lot of volume.
Okay, good.
Uh,
Oh
so
yeah, I actually see the one. Is
when
that a?
we in December, when we
Yeah,
signed,
I'm looking at this candle right here. What was that? How many shares did you trade?
we
1.1.
traded 80 million shares in one day off the stock gen deal. 80 million shares.
Okay.
More recently, we traded about, I think, about 2 million shares not too long ago. We did a lot
Yeah,
of
I see it.
insider
I see the
buying.
spike. Yep.
Yeah, I bought another 2% of the company. So I guess that insider filing kind of got people excited a little bit about the stock. So we have every time we do some really interesting announcements, we're getting the volume. So the retail side is seeing what we're doing. They're picking it up. So
See, you
that's
just
where
said
I'm.
another key thing. So let me tell you, man, you pretty much knocked it out of the park in this interview with me because,
Thanks.
and this is the first time we've met, right? I mean, this is the first time you and I have ever talked. And I'm going to tell you, you're saying all the right things. You just did yourself an open market buy, right? You put your money where your mouth is. This is what I tell CEOs all the time, right? If
Yeah.
you really believe that this is a value, then step up to the plate, right? And you did. So I think these are. Listen, I am impressed with you. I think you're a stand up. I think you're very transparent. I think you have a clear vision. I think you got a great strategy. And I would say to people, if you are unfamiliar with Loop, this is what I would do. I would buy 10 shares. That way you always have this. Now you will pay attention to it because you own it,
Yeah.
right? It may wind up that it takes off from here and you wish you had 10,000 shares, but hey, 10 shares is better than no shares, right?
Yeah.
And it is, look, this is our first interview, but I want to come back when there's maybe some kind of follow up that we can do, right?
Yeah. I would say the biggest follow up is like now the big catalyst for us in the next 6 months is all
Yeah.
going to be announcing those customer contracts. So
Okay.
signing long-term off-take agreements with the big CPG companies, the big apparel companies for guaranteed price, guaranteed volumes, take or pay for the contracts. Those are the big milestones. And I would suspect, once you announce some of these really big customer contracts with these huge brand names, I would suspect we're going to get a lot more attraction on the stock at that point as well. So I'd love to come back with you after some of those contracts are announced. We'll see where we
Absolutely.
are, and then I can lay out where we're going from there. But
Oh, I
that's the
love
big
that.
catalyst. Summer,
Yep.
it's a little bit quiet now. Like end of August starts picking up again, but especially in Europe because a lot of the customers we work with are the European guys. But September, October, November is just going to be customer contracts coming out.
Okay. Daniel, I want to thank you. You feel as though I missed anything here?
No, I think we did a really good first interview, but I'd love to be back once we get some of these announcements out of the way.
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And like I said, if you are not, or if you're unfamiliar with the stock, go to their website, sign up. You guys have a newsletter, right? Or is it an email alert?
Yeah, we have a newsletter email alert. Yeah, we can send that around to people. We can
Okay.
sign up and we'll send that off to you.
Okay. I would go, and if you can, sign up for their email alerts. That way, when they have positive news, it gets sent right to your, or negative news. But a positive guy. So when you get news, they'll have it.
Thank you for
sent
joining us
directly to
for
your
another
inbox.
CEO interview here
And
at
Daniel, I
Alpha
can't
Wolf
wait to see
Capital.
where this
Today we
goes,
had
man.
Daniel
Hold on one
All right.
second. I'm going to shut this
Solomita.
off. All right.
All right.
From Loop Industries. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, do us a favor. Give us a like. How about giving us a share? And while you're at it, make sure you smash that subscribe button. All of those things are extremely important to us here at Alpha Wolf Capital, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Capital wishes you the very best of success.